Who's here for Pathways? Who's already started Pathways? Good, you're all done. You may go home. My name is Curtis Henson, and I took on Pathways like you did back in December. But as an engineer in computer science and a UX programmer and a user interface person, I was able to take Pathways beginning of December like you, but go all the way through level 1 and then reverse engineer level 1 to give you the shortest steps to get through level 1. At the end of the presentation today, I encourage you to email me to get this presentation as a PDF. The reason is that this presentation is to show you there's an easy way to get through level 1. And there's also an easy way to get to the material to print it for a while until you are ready to transition to the online interface. So this presentation is to show you how to get through the material so that you can do it yourself. Why should you embrace Pathways? Because you have no choice. Oh, that is so sad. I would like to believe it's because we have had to deal with medium changes throughout human history. And we're going through yet another medium change to go from printed material. Yes, we've had an array of medium changes that we've had to deal with over time. How many of you are still smearing paint on walls? Probably not. Just a couple people in the back. I understand why you're in the back. Toastmasters has also gone through some transitions. Smedley wrote this one on the left. Is that my left? Yes. And this is the one that's being phased out. How many of you have pets? Dogs in particular. Dog owners? Do you know what a Kong is? Yes. That hard rubber thing. You stick the treat in, the dog goes nuts for hours trying to get the treat out. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Kong. It's a little bit tricky to get around in here, but what we're going to do is go through some of the steps to get there. But first I want to give you some conventions that are going to make sense a little bit later on. How many of you know you're going to have new title designations after your name on your tag, on your name tags when this comes down the pipe? I'm going to explain to you why these are going to be replaced and what they're going to be replaced with. And if you're taking pictures, you can, but remember, I'm going to give you this. With the new Toastmasters transitions, you're going to have these different designations. Each of these has its own unique set of letters. When you achieve a different level, you're going to put a different number behind it. So Ralph here has made it to Dynamic Leadership Level 2 and PM 5. This is how we're going to be able to identify the people who've gone before us down a particular path, to go to them and say, can you help me? Or can you give me some tips? The objectives here are simple. We're just going to go through level 1. If you get the mechanics of getting through level 1, you can get through level 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your own. Because it's the mechanics of getting through that interface to get to the material that's most important. We're going to show you the screen navigation to do that. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to show you how to print the material. I hope none of you paid for printed material. Don't raise your hands, because I'm going to embarrass you by showing that you can print any of the paths. Not just the ones they say are available for print. You can print any of the paths yourself out of Pathways. We're going to explain ePortfolio at the end. We have a couple other things that we may get through as well. I wrote this presentation, so it goes pretty quick when I do it. Level 1 people. How many of you have completed level 1? Too bad you didn't get my tips before you started. I could have saved you some time. Did you know that every speech in level 1, if you've been in Toastmaster for any length of time, you can do impromptu? The first one's a 4 or 6 minute icebreaker. How many of you can't do an icebreaker again? You've already done one. The second speech is a speech about anything you want to talk about for 5 to 7 minutes. Take your feedback, incorporate it, and deliver it again. You get to do the second speech twice. That's a freebie. The third one is one where you're going to cite resources. And I know some of you are going, oh no, back to college, back to having to research stuff to put tips in there. I have had people come up and talk about the music that influenced their life. They cited sources. The only other thing you need to do with level 1 is evaluate someone else's speech, and you have completed level 1. You can do that before you have even chosen your path because there's a precedent. For you who know what Speechcraft is, Speechcraft gives you the option to take speeches that you've given in Speechcraft and bring them over and get credit for them in Toastmasters. In the back, can you read the top line, Betty? Okay. Say it again.
Where leaders are made.
You can read that. Great. What about very top, way up there?
Log in, find a club.
Betty has phenomenal eyesight. I know some of you are saying, I don't know about that, which is why in this presentation, what's that, Betty?
I can't read the third one.
Okay. This is why in this presentation we have the convention of these yellow rectangles where we're going to zoom in. And when we zoom in, you'll be able to see these little pieces of the screen that we're going to focus on. We want you to log in. I hope most of you have logged into Toastmasters International. After you do and you click Pathways, you're going to see that there are an array of options, and 3 of them go to the same place. And you're probably saying, well, why didn't they fix that? Having written code before and written manuals for code, I can tell you that this is probably because somewhere in the written material that they've distributed, so they don't have to send new material out, it references multiple things, has different references for the exact same thing. Most important is that the Pathway learning experience is where you get to the blue rectangles. The only difference the blue one does is that it clicks this button for you on the bottom of the rectangle on the right to get you into path selection. When you go into path selection, you're going to take a quiz. This quiz is non-binding. Don't feel like, oh no, this is the be-all, end-all. If I blow this, I'm going to be stuck with a path that I don't like. You can go through the quiz as many times as you like, but you must go through it once or you won't see skip assessment down here at the bottom. After you go through the assessment, many of you probably already know, if you've already been there, that it's going to give you 1 recommended and a couple of alternate paths to work with. These, again, are not the only 3 that you can see. Down on the bottom right, this little tiny upside V, we call that a chevron. If you click that, you can see all of the paths. After you see these paths, the first thing that I would like you to know is that this yellow stuff is boilerplate. If you glance at it, it all says the same thing. When pharmaceutical companies want to sell you something, they give you glowing pictures and simple words. When they don't want you to know about the disclaimers, they're big words and they're written fast and they're at the bottom somewhere. So this is kind of a flaw to me in the way that they presented the material. What I did was I said, okay, let's take what's in there that is important and distill it down to bullet points. These are the bullet points from each of the paths. We took it a step farther. Where the titles are just dynamic leadership, effective coaching, and so forth, they're all these unique 2-letter words so that they could have a different designation after each person's name. What that did was limit them in how they defined them. As I looked through the different paths, I said to myself, innovative planning, leader, project manager, innovative solutions, strong audience, connections. I thought that might be someone who wanted to work in project development. Again, these are my assessments. In your facility, in your participants guide, this chart is in there. You can use this to decide which path you want to do. If you've already chosen your path, you're going to need this material to share with your members in helping them get started in pathways. To change or add a path, you picked one and you don't like it. You get 30 days before you can, in which time you can talk to TI and get it changed out. There's a phone number and there's a email address that you can email and say, please give me a different path. This one is not going to work for me. How do you know if the path is right for you? Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to show you how to go, where you can go to look through the material. When you first go to the learning experience page, you're going to have these 2 blue rectangles. After you've chosen a path, you're going to have this one in the middle. This one in the middle, if you happen to be a member of multiple clubs, is going to have a drop-down for you to choose which club you want to be associated with while you're in Pathways. The last club you were associated with is the one that can see you in their rosters, in their reports, and so forth. But please, okay. Base Camp. How many of you have not been to Base Camp? This is the main screen after you get into Pathways from which you're going to do most of the things that you do in Pathways. That's why it's a base camp. It's a place where you start. We're going to talk about a couple of different things from here that are important to people. We're going to go into this top right corner first. That little gear, or asterisk with a hole in it, or star, whatever you want to call it, is where we're going to click to go to our account. What is this important for? Functionary roles. If you have been a functionary, one of the ones that are listed up here, this is where you're going to put the date when you were a functionary. It's going to be important when you go from Pathways level 2 to 3, I believe it is, where you're going to need to have been the Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, and an Evaluator in order to advance. This does not keep a history of the dates that you were in there. If you're using Free Toast Host or anything like that for keeping track of functionary history, keep doing that. This only records the last day that you were in that functionary role. To do it, there's a little calendar object. You can click on that. When you do it, a little calendar comes up. You choose the date and click Save. That's all there is to recording your functionary roles. After that, there's browser settings. How many of you have an IT person in your back pocket? Find one. Find someone like me. Buy me coffee, whatever it takes to help you make sure that you can get the pop-up screens properly. Because what happens, wait, we're going to have a little sidebar here. There's some navigation tips. The maroon banner is a hover banner. You hover over it and it brings up the little menu that comes down underneath it. Check compatibility. If you hover over in maroon, the little gray menu drops down. People were clicking maroon and it makes the gray menu go away. Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? You have to hover over maroon and then click on the gray menu that comes down. When you go into the settings for checking your browser, you want to just make sure everything's checked off as green. If you are on a Windows machine, you're going to get tips on how to resolve any issue that might be related to not having these things, which Pop-Up Blocker, Adobe Flash, and Java are the things that I found most common that aren't working. If you're on a Mac, this is blank. It's not going to give you much help. Again, you want to run into some... Did I have a question? Yes?
I was going to say, most modern browsers don't support Flash anymore.
Right. And it may not even be an issue. The main thing is the pop-up blocking the ability for Pathways to bring up the menus for the training material. That's the big one. Main thing is, if you go in and you don't get things to pop up, then you've got an issue that needs to get resolved, and you need to probably track down someone who can help you. Transition. How many of you are terrified of going to the online experience because you want your paper manuals? You don't have to raise your hands. We would all raise our hands right here because I'm one of those. I'm going through Pathways on the paper manuals. I'm going to show you how to print that material out. They look like this in level 1, by the way. Looks a whole lot like the existing manuals. Do you know that they even go so far as have the legacy logo on the very last page? You know how your old manuals had the old logo on the back page? You know why that's there? Because if they don't use it somewhere, the copyright law is that they lose it. As long as they're using it anywhere, like on the back of manuals, even on the back of the Pathways manuals, they can keep the logo in play. We're going to show you how to get to this material. You're going to go to the bottom of the curriculums, to the bottom of the base camp, and open your curriculum. When you click the Open Curriculum, it brings up your curriculum screen and shows you the different projects you're going to do in that level. Here's where we're going to deviate again. We're going to go look at the training details that you need to do within 30 days to decide whether you're going to keep a path. In the top right corner of the curriculum screen, if you click View Training Details, it looks like this. There's a little chevron at the side of each of these objects where you can open it up and read a narrative of each of these pieces. And this goes all the way through level 5. It even includes the projects that are electives, so you can decide which electives. You can look through this material, and you want to do that within 30 days to decide if this is the path for you. Back to printing projects. We're going to launch the icebreaker, and when you do, the screen that comes up, this one here is the intro screen. What I strongly recommend you do is look at the very bottom of this screen. Oh, there's a navigation screen that comes up after that welcome screen. I don't use, you see I have the little circle with the arrow through it. I don't use this to tab through the narrative or the online experience because to me it's a lot like reading a book of fortune cookies. One little piece of information at a time. I prefer to go to the bottom here and move to a specific section. There's a menu that pops up and here's the magic. Where it says your evaluation, if you go to your evaluation, it says print my project. When you click that, a PDF window pops up of the material that you can save as a PDF or print it out and look at it with an incandescent lamp, old school. It has at the bottom of it navigation tools, the plus and minus screen so you can tab through it, but it's going to feed you a page of information at a time from TI's server, so it's a little bit slow. I strongly recommend you at least save it. Tree huggers, save it to PDF and read it on your tablet. Everybody else, we're going to print it out. Advancing through the projects, you don't need VPE to sign off on projects. I've had people say, I finished my icebreaker, who do I tell to go to the next one? You can go there by yourself. I'm going to show you how to do that. You unlock projects by assessing your skills. Now, in an earlier version, it was you do it before and after, but technically you only have to do the after. We're going to show you how to do these assessments. Again, you're going to launch the project, back to that menu at the bottom. Assess your skills before and assess your skills after. If you're the kind of person that likes to know, here's how I feel about this project before I start it, and then I want to know afterwards the battery of questions about it, you can do that. I didn't do that. I went right to assess your skills after because that triggers the unlock of the next project. It looks like this. I just went 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm not an ambassador. I can tell you shortcuts. If you look at the online material, it looks like this. If you look at the printed material, this is what it looks like. It has the questions right next to each other on your where you click how you feel before and how you feel after. Again, it's up to you. If you want to go through it, you can. You want to tell the VPE when you're finished with your level. You mark complete at the bottom of the menu here. Now here's one of the oddities. You're going to mark complete. That tells your VPE that you're ready to advance. If you click the other option, launch, it brings up a PDF essentially telling you clicked the wrong thing. It gives you the instructions to go back and click the right thing to advance to the next level. Pathways accomplishments and Toastmasters International accomplishments awards are recorded in 2 different places and they are not linked together. We had some issues as we were approaching DCP where people said, well, I clicked everybody off to advance to the next level. Why isn't it showing up in my DCP report? You still have to go over to Club Central to give credit to them for the award. They're not linked together. In summary, this is the base of the presentation. Oh, wow, we get to go home. No, we got a little bit more going on. You log into Toastmasters, you choose your path, you go to the curriculum, you print the manuals to paper or PDF, you work the projects, and you let your VPE know. That's level 1 in a nutshell. I want you to take this information back to your members and say, it's not that hard. You can migrate to this material, and we're going to help you. We have some supplements. When I was in Tucson, one of the things they said, well, how do I get my documents electronically saved? There was some interest in ePortfolio. We're going to go quickly through an ePortfolio example. We're going to show you where to do this. ePortfolio is optional. If you want to do like me and print the material out and have someone do the evaluation in the back of the manual, it's still there. You can still have someone do the evaluation in the back of the manual just like the legacy manuals. But if you want to do an evaluation and then store them online to have a place other than a file cabinet with a whole bunch of paper, this is where this is going to be handy for you. You're going to click the little picture that's next to the little gear or the asterisk with a hole in it. When you do, there's a couple of things come up, and we're going to go through different ones of these. The ePortfolio is the one we'll do right now. This is where you'll choose the document option on the left. When you do, it gives you a series of folders where you can store documents online. How many of you are accustomed to clicking on objects, pictures, that kind of thing? Doesn't work here. You have to click on the maroon word level. That's what gets you into it, because if you click, 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 it's not going to happen. When you go into level 1, you can see I have a couple of objects that I've scanned and saved out there. You just click add a file, select the file. If you're the kind that's like comfortable with drag and drop, I'm not, then you can do that. Otherwise, you can click select a file, and it's going to bring up your computer's file manager so that you can pick the file, choose it, and then click save, and that'll put the image out there. Just click add. That's ePortfolio in a nutshell. You're going to have this to take with you again, so you can go back through this. Summarize level 1 projects, show screen navigation shortcuts, how to print the manuals, and explain ePortfolio. That's the base. For you guys, we've got a little bit more going on. This is the general supplement for this session, requesting feedback. If you go online, not very many people are doing it yet, asking for feedback on things, but we want to know how to do it, because otherwise you're going to go to a meeting and someone's going to say, hey, I sent you a feedback request, and you haven't responded to me. We want to know how to go in and check for feedback. Click the picture again. Feedback option is right there next to ePortfolio. This is the screen. We're going to talk about the different pieces of it. Write your narrative. Hey, I need help with this, or could you review this outline that I have for me? On the second line, you're going to say who you want that to go to. And I'll show you in a second the screen that pops up when you click the little button at the bottom, at the far side of that. The third one is whether you want the managers to also be able to see this information. Maybe you want the VPE, the secretary, and the president to be able to see this overview as well, in addition to whoever else you want to see this material. Then you're going to have a little paper clip over here where you can attach some scanned item. Then you click post. Again, when you want to choose who's going to see this material, there's a search button here. You can type in a few letters of someone's name, and the names will start showing up. You can type in a few letters of your club name, and everybody's name will show up. There's some little dots in the top right corner of the feedback. When you click that, that's where you're going to get the list of feedback requests that were sent to you. Again, hardly anyone's going to be using this for a while, but you want to get comfortable with it because you may need to start checking it. People are going to say, will you go look at my feedback request? This is how you get there. Progress reports. You guys are going to get to see a little bit more today. We're going to go through the whole presentation, which includes the information for VPEs and the information for presidents and secretaries. Progress reports. Let's say you have logged in already as yourself. That little gear object is where you'll log out so you can go back to Basecamp to log in as a Basecamp manager. Presidents, secretaries, and VPEs are the ones who log in as to Basecamp manager. Member progress. When you click member progress, there are an array of bar charts in there. Individual progress shows you the people that are in different projects, different paths. I have one person in dynamic leadership. Ignore the 0.5. There are no half members. I know there are those who would like to be identified, who we'd like to identify as such, but there are no half members. So I have one person in effective coaching and dynamic leadership. I have a couple of people in innovative planning. When you click on view details, then you can see who those people are. Why is this chart important? Because it tells you who's chosen a path. People who haven't chosen a path aren't going to show up here, and that's the people you want to reach out to and say, do you need help? Can I help you get a path selected? Can I help you get started? Speaking of getting started, there's another chart out here that's kind of important. Everybody in maroon has not only chosen a path, they've started it. They've initiated or activated at least the icebreaker. That gray object up there, there are two people who chose a path, but they have yet to go into the curriculum and start the material. So this gives you an idea who to reach out to and say, okay, we got you on a path. What do we need to do to get you started clicking on or working on your icebreaker? That's the progress reports. This is important information because the only thing that the progress report does for you is tell you that people have chosen. It tells you the checkoff in the level information. It doesn't tell you if someone is on their second speech in level 2 or their second speech in level 1. That's where you're going to want to keep track internally with where people are so that you can help them with that next speech project. DCP strategy, approve levels for members in advancement, post awards separately from levels, negotiate with dual members. DCP comes around. You've already made President's Distinguished. Betty, yes?
Who has access to this report?
This material is accessible by the base camp managers. You must be president, VPE, or secretary to get to that information. But you can get to it by just asking them to show it to you. Yes? The VP, actually the 3 officers I just mentioned, they can all go in and approve levels. President can go in and approve a level advancement, the secretary, and the VPE. And I know I'm blowing through this material. Any more questions? Questions? By all means, throw it. Wendy.
I think you're getting it. If you want to dual members, or if you want multiple clubs, can each club see the paths you selected?
Here's some strategic stuff. DCPs come around. You have already got all of the level 1s you need. Maybe you've made it to President's Distinguished, and someone else finishes a level and they're a member of a dual club. What do you do with it? Even though they gave the speech in your club, they can give that to another club that they're a member of towards their DCP goal. People have said, why aren't these tied together? Advancing people in pathways and then assigning awards in Club Central. You don't want these integrated yet. Because if someone's a member of multiple clubs, you want to like trade. Let's say you get someone that's got an advanced award and I've got a couple of these that you need. Let's have them apply that one over here and we'll apply these over there. It's kind of a strategic thing that you can do with applying the awards. That's why I like the idea that they're still separated. Progress reports, summary. Unlocking levels and recording awards. Your VPEs, secretaries, and presidents need to know how to get people through advancing into the next level. Differentiate pathways from Club Central, show pathways level, unlock screens, and show Club Central awards. We're going to show you the screens to do all this as a VPE. Pathways unlocks levels. Club Central posts awards. I know I've said that a number of times, but I want to make sure that that's clear. When you're in pathways, remember I said if you're a member of multiple clubs, you can click and choose the club that you're in. While you're in there, even when you back out, you're still only visible in that club. The others can't see you. Let's say you want someone in another club to be able to see you to collaborate on stuff or to post or to approve levels. You need to switch clubs so that the VP, president, or secretary of that club can see your material, can see you to be able to advance you. Now this could change. I've had to change this presentation a number of times because Pathways has come out with changes that have modified it. How many of you are comfortable or familiar with Leadership Central, Club Central, logging in there? This is beautiful. You're going to go to Submit Educational Awards. You're going to pick the member and you're going to select the education program. How many of you remember posting awards in the legacy material? Someone hands you the CC or an advanced manual and you have to type in the speech titles and the dates. You don't have to do that anymore. All you do is click the level. Applause, please. This is a big one. This is a big one. I love it. You can just say, click, one click, done. In Pathways, you go to Basecamp Manager and you look at the pending requests. When people have finished their level 1 or their level 2, they're going to have an entry out there in this line right here. There'll be a check mark, a green check mark that you can click over there, and that just makes it so they can get into the next level. Not rocket science. We talked about the different paths. We showed Pathways level unlock screens and Club Central award posting. You've just seen the entire presentation. If you have any questions, throw them out now. Go ahead.
How do you bank How do you bank your awards?
Same way we did before.
Yeah.
I finished my manual and I sat on it.
Right.
And let's say I finished a manual at the end of the GCP year, but nobody needs it. I hang on to it and post it in July. It's actually discouraged. In fact, in the participants guide, I believe it tells you you should and are supposed to post them right away. But we're strategic thinkers here, right? Any other questions? In the back, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Curtis. By any chance, can you recommend a video or some place I can send people that gives them just a general overview of how Toastmasters works?
Funny you should, oh, a general overview of how Toastmasters works?
Of pathways and everything that you just presented, essentially.
If you look over to my right, your left,
Okay.
Don Griffith is recording as we speak. And if I don't have my fly down or anything else wrong with this video, we're going to make this available to you. But they didn't, my name is up here. You're more than welcome to email me. What you're looking at is not a PDF presentation. It was created from a PDF presentation, but this is, excuse me, it was a PowerPoint presentation. This is a PDF. If you email me, I will email this to you. You can take this back to your clubs. Go ahead.
I'm brand new to this.
Oh, okay.
We're just starting a chapter, a group. One of the questions that just popped in my head, on the president, VPE, and other positions, how long does that position, does a person stay in that position within a group?
This might have been touched on in the Path to DTM presentation. There's another presentation that I wrote. In Pathways, you need to have a year of club service. If you're a club that has it in 6-month cycles, it can be a mix. You can be VP in one cycle and Sergeant at Arms in another cycle, but you need a year of club leadership for advancement in Pathways. Something that I know in the past hasn't been clear is that you really have to be in here in TLI to get credit for your leadership role. Make sure that you show up. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay, what's the rest of it?
Well, once we start the group,
Uh-huh.
okay, she's president, I'm taking the VP position.
Okay.
Do we evaluate who can go for those positions in 6 months or a year, or do we just hold them as long as we want to because we're the ones that started the group?
The way Ralph Smedley... Sorry, go ahead.
Repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
No, you.
Oh, me repeat the question. Oh, okay. You know, I'm as much a part of what's going on out there as I am up here, so I'm not sure what my role is completely. The question is, you have a new club.
My question is, we have a new club that we're starting. She's taking the president role, I'm taking the VP role. So what I'm trying to understand is, from the minute that we start the club, our first meeting, do we evaluate who wants to apply for those positions, our positions, in 6 months, 12 months, or do we just hold on to them because we are the ones that originated the club?
Okay. Did everyone hear the question? It's a new club. It depends on your charter as far as how long the officer roles are set up. So you want to look at the charter and see if it's a 6-month or a 12-month cycle for the officer role. Ralph Smedley set this up for us all to take turns with the officer roles. And you want to rotate through as many officer roles as you can because they all give you exposure to management. They all give you exposure to leadership in the different capacities. Being a treasurer is very different than being a sergeant at arms. I strongly encourage you guys to look at your charter, see if it's 6 months or a year charter, and nurture people. Encourage people to shadow you in your roles. When you get to that point where you're going to transition to someone else, and I strongly recommend you do, you'll have someone that's ready, that's been menteeing off of you to take on these roles. Ralph Smedley in his first 3 clubs completely failed. He started them. When he walked away and let them try to run on their own, they all fell flat. It wasn't until he figured out that he had to nurture this leadership and get rotation in the leadership that the clubs began to stay alive in his absence. And look how many of them are staying alive today in his absence. And it's because he set something up in the beginning that's still alive.
Thank you.
Don.
Curtis. I'm a new VPE for my club, so I've been going to the base camp manager and learning. There's a trick that I learned that you didn't mention. When you're looking at the status, those bars, you need to refresh those screens, and there's a button called refresh. If you don't, you might be looking at 2 weeks old data. Do the refresh, and then you'll see the latest stats for your club and where the members are and so forth.
Yes, Don brings up an interesting point because the first time you go in there, it's probably going to be blank and say no data. But there's a refresh button right there. Thank you for bringing that up, Don. There's a refresh button right there, and in a couple of minutes, it'll bring up the bar charts that I saw. But Don just brought me to another thought, too. When you bring up the Pathways material, when you click the objects in the curriculum, and it brings up that screen where I showed you the blue pull-up menu, maximize that screen. Because it notoriously comes up too small to see the menu on the bottom. When I was talking to some Pathways ambassadors about my presentation in the early going, and I was showing them this blue menu to pull up, they said, we've never seen that menu. Because it's hidden. Because it doesn't maximize the screen as it should. If they fix that, which I hope they do, you'll be able to see that navigation menu on the bottom, and you'll also be able to see the chevrons on the side, which were also hidden as far as navigating through that screen. So maximize the training screen when you go out there, and you'll be able to see that menu that's pulled up, the blue menu that pulls up on the bottom. Other questions? Go ahead. Yes?
I have several, but I'll just ask.
I'll take all of them. We have 10, 15 minutes.
I printed this report, level 1 in progress
Uh-huh.
report, and then just for the audience, we might want to explain the curriculum completion percentage.
Don?
0, 5, or 10. I think it's how you progress through that level. So if there's 4 speeches, we give you a 5.
This may be where the progression is.
Right here.
This right here.
Uh-huh.
This may be, and again, I've gone through this level 1 myself, and I'm still learning some of this stuff too. There's a curriculum percentage point on the tail end of this, and it may be, I'd have to go back and look at this to see if that means that you've checked off your first speech or your second speech. That's the only thing that would make sense to me, is if that's showing you a percentage on that particular person for that level, it stands to reason that that correlates with the percentage that you see on the curriculum screen as you're clicking through.
That's correct. That's exactly,
Don says that's correct.
That's exactly what it means. You can't tell by looking at the percentage what project they finished unless you memorize those, but you can watch them progress by looking at that percentage number.
Okay. Behind her, yes, you had a question.
So you had showed, thank you for all the tips and tricks. You had showed how to kind of bypass and print the PDFs. What I found is if you do go through those arrows on each side, it brings up the opportunity to see the videos,
That's true.
which are extremely valuable.
They are, absolutely, and I don't want to minimize that at all.
3 times to
Right.
just refresh myself on evaluations, and my concern is if people just PDF print,
Yep.
you miss out on those learnings.
The nice thing about printing the material out is that it tells you in the printed material, hey, there's a video here you might want to go see. It does take you back there. When you get to level 2, the very first project, assessing your leadership style, there's an assessment, an evaluation questionnaire to find out about your leadership style. If you're going through the printed material and filling in the ovals, you got to get a calculator out at the end to figure out which one it came to. You want to go back online to do it online because it's going to calculate it for you and give you the results. This printing of the material is something I want you to share with your members to help them have a transition. But you're right. There's material that as we go forward, we really want to embrace and get deeper into it this way. There's how many of you are familiar with the ring mushroom? Boy, is that out there, right? Ring mushroom. It poisons the soil at its feet. The spores land to the outside edge, and they start growing from that ring, and they poison the soil at their feet, and the ring gets bigger and bigger. This is the way cities grow when there's urban sprawl. You have a dead center, and the growth is at the edge. Communication has the potential and has grown in the same way. As we have advanced in our communication methodologies, we've forgotten how to talk to one another. We don't teach cursive writing in our schools anymore, and that was the way we got our expression out of our heart through our hand. Pathways is embracing moving forward with blogging and understanding this online experience in communication. But I want us to be at the forefront of not forgetting where communication came from and where it is strongest. The one-on-one, the evaluations, the feedback, the ums and ahs. We want to be there with the basic communication, even though we're understanding these new methodologies of communicating, these new mediums that Pathways is sharing with us. Questions? Yes? I will get to you in just a moment.
What are the essential steps before you can mark a level B? Like, do I have to upload all the evaluation forms?
Not at all. All you need to do is complete the material. Betty. Oh, okay. 5 minutes. All you have to do is complete the material. You don't have to post anything online. You can keep all of it in hard copy.
There's some percentage at different levels. What does that mean? Does it have to do with the watching videos, or do I need to worry about it?
This is what Dawn was talking about earlier that she brought up, is that we know by the material that you are on level 1 or on level 2, but that percentage is what portion you've progressed through that material. So the percentage that we talked about there, let me get his question, I'll come back to you. When you go through that material, that percentage is telling you basically how far along you are through that particular level. And I believe that, Dawn, does that reset?
No, that is your path completion number.
That's your path completion number.
Cumulative,
It does keep going.
If you go to level 2, you'll be at 20%. If you go to level 3, you'll be at 40%. And so
Okay.
that gives you a thermometer of your path progress.
Okay.
Just
Did
like
everyone hear Dawn?
Just
Okay.
like your curriculum.
Okay.
When you're in your curriculum, there's a big percentage number.
Okay.
So when you hit 50%, you know you're halfway through a path.
Okay. Let me get your question and then I'll come back over here. Go ahead.
Smartphones and tablets. I've noticed every time I go into Pathways and as EPE, when I get this bar saying to get rid of pop-up boxes, tells me to go to Safari and so forth and so on. How do I get rid of it if I don't have it? My tablet is not coordinated with integrating that little
Do you have an iPad or do you have an Android-based tablet? You have an iPad? iPad's a little trickier. So when you go into Pathways, you're not getting the pop-up material.
As I say, if I'm switching from, I go from Basecamp into where the PPEs and information is, I get this, it disappears, then I click on it again, but it brings up the window saying, you have to give it a pop-up box.
Would you email me and I'll email you back? Because I'd like to see what's going on there and have an answer for you that might be helpful for someone else. They've got a question from over. Yes. Yes. The gear, the sprocket with a hole in it, there's the asterisks.
I wish that those functionary rules were somewhere else. So I hope that's in the future to move. But you don't need to fulfill those functionary rules from level 1 to get to level 2.
Right.
You said that you do to get from level 2 to level 3.
Don, is it from level 2 to level 3?
No, I think it's a project after level 2. So
A project after level 2 where you must have been Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, and it's general evaluator or any evaluator? Not sure.
It's the mentor program.
It's the mentor program that you have to be there for? Okay.
You have to have those for the mentor program.
Okay.
So I had filled out the functionary rules and it's just like,
If you've been all those functions, just do them. Just make sure you fill them all in, and then you won't have an issue with that.
okay, so that was my question. In level 2, and then fill out.
They actually transfer over. They don't, like when you go from level 1 to level 2, those don't reset.
Oh, okay.
So they'll still be there. I encourage you to keep them up to date. Go ahead.
Do you have to have those populated in order to move to the next level?
Only, as Don was saying, there's the project, and we believe it's the mentoring project. We're not quite sure. Again, Toastmaster, Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, and an evaluator are the only ones that have to be populated, and we're debating whether it's in the mentor program or going from level 2 to level 3. Just take on all the functionary roles. One of the things that I wish was still here with Pathways was the CL. Because the Competent Leader Manual was your checkoff for getting comfortable with functionary roles. The equivalent of that is just to write down one time that I was a particular function. In your clubs, you want to find a way to get people comfortable with being timer and counter and grammarian. In Biltmore Toastmasters, we sign someone up for a role 3 weeks in a row. That way it's fresh in their mind the next week that they do it, and the third time's the charm. Okay, now I'm comfortable with timer. If someone signs up for counter, and then they don't sign up for a month, They're lost because they forgot everything they learned about being on-counter. Again, the CL was what I used as a gauge for, okay, I need to do this many times in here and the different levels. It helped us get comfortable with functionary roles.
So you put someone in a role for like the same role?
We'll put someone in the same role for like 3 weeks in a row. That way they do it, they know they're coming back to it, it stays fresh in their mind, and they get comfortable with going forward. Betty.
DCP has one goal of 2 CCs or 2 people who reach level 2. Can you have 1 and 1?
You can't mix.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Curtis, do you or maybe someone else in the room already have a Excel example spreadsheet of what we can use to track the pathways accomplishments rather than to reinvent the wheel, something that's already developed where we can pop in our members' names?
How many of you have Free Toast Host or some of the other Toastmasters programs out there for websites? You can go into, if you bring up the agenda in, for example, Free Toast Host, the icons that are above the agenda, one of them is a report agenda. You can go back and look at the history of every functionary role that someone has been in. You can also go back and see their speaking history. So you can pull up, I can pull up myself and see every speech, manual labeled, going backwards in Free Toast Host. That's one method, but otherwise you're looking at using a spreadsheet. He's got a question back there and then I'll come right back here.
I was going to say with that report, you got to be careful and you got to have somebody true up the agendas as you go.
He brings up a good point. Using Free Toast Host is good, however, you have to keep it up to date. Let's say you have a meeting that comes together, people aren't there, you need to change roles. You want to make sure you update that stuff in Free Toast Host or your history is not going to be accurate. Yes?
I want to say that this reporting manager, there's export to Excel.
Right. Yes, you can. You can export to Excel and then go forward from there, keeping track of it. We're pretty close to time. If you would please fill out an evaluation. Let me know how I did. And take down my email address so I can send you this presentation. Thank you.